Okay, we're now up to oral 17, which is Highlands Ranch, Colorado. This is also a Mission 4 flight experiment, which returned to Earth in March.
Hi, this is my project. What are the effects of creation of beer in microgravity, and is it possible? This presentation is by me. I'm the principal investigator, Michał Bojanowski. Next, please. The idea. Coming up with the idea. There are three major things that helped influence and help me create my idea. First one is the Gruesome Facts book. It's a book full with gruesome facts, and one of the facts is that in the medieval era, people used to drink beer and ale because it was safer to drink than the well water, because the well water was contaminated with bacteria, and the alcohol in the beer would kill the bacteria, and making it safe to drink. The second thing was the wine in space experiment. This is an experiment sent up on mission 1 to the ISS by a California team that is very similar to mine. However, the purpose of my experiment is different, and also the materials are. And there was also the 4th grade science fair yeast experiment. In 4th grade, my science fair project was about yeast, and so I had background knowledge with using yeast. Next slide, please. But why beer in space? Basically, it's the use of an alcohol beverage in space exploration. Now, what that means is there's really two parts to my experiment. The first part is actually creating that beer, as you see on the bottom bullet point. But the second part, if I can get the chance to do this again, would to actually be able to split the alcohol from the now decontaminated water, and the alcohol can be used for medical purposes because it kills bacteria, and the water can be used for drinking. Now, of course, this is in an emergency or an accident, and you can either store alcohol in space or create alcohol in space, and again, my experiment is about creating alcohol. Next slide, please. This is the materials and procedure. Volume 1 is 0.55 milliliters of dry distiller's yeast. If you look at the image there, it would be like where the blue is. Volume 2 is 7.3 milliliters of water, and that'd be where the yellow is. There's so much water because we don't want it to dry up. If it dries up, the yeast will not be able to produce alcohol and carbon dioxide. Volume 3 is the sugar source for the yeast that is made out of malted barley and hops, which are used in the creation of actual beer. And note that we're not actually creating beer, we're creating alcohol with the ingredients of beer. The procedure is A equals 0 or D equals 0. As soon as they get it, as soon as they can get their hands on it, they will unclamp both of the clamps, separating the ingredients, and they will shake it for 2 seconds. Next slide, please. So this is how we harvest the data. People who are more knowledgeable can read the slide. If not, I'll give you a short explanation. Basically, yeast plus sugar equals carbon dioxide and alcohol. Carbon dioxide, when it mixes with the water, it creates something called carbonic acid. Now, sodium hydroxide is a base and carbonic acid is an acid. And on the pH scale, it's like a scale from bases to acids on either side, and then the middle is neutral. Neutral is your drinking water. Acids are like sodas, and bases are like your laundry detergent. And once we get that middle from the acid and base, we can find out how much carbon dioxide was produced, and from that we can find out how much alcohol, and from that we can put it into grams. Next slide, please. Now here are results. The trials were actually not different trials, but they were actually like the amount made split into 3, so we can have like 3 different tests. And for the space test, you can see that it had like half as much as the Earth test. Note that there's actually very, very little grams of ethanol. It's actually 0.0005, not just 5 grams. But then again, it's split into 3. Next slide, please. All right, this is our data analysis. My prediction was that more ethanol would be produced in space. This was not correct. Why? I think there may have been a source of error, which we'll get to next, not now. And other possibilities may include that it was actually how it happens in space, that this isn't, that alcohol isn't produced in much quantities. Now, I talked with another experiment that's going up in Mission 5 and to get their results once it comes back. They are testing in a different way. And if we can go to the next slide, please. And so if I had my source of error, which I think the biggest one was the test method, basically, if you were listening, which you probably were, that we only measured the carbon dioxide that went into the water. And so gravity could have pushed the carbon dioxide that was on the top of the test tube, into the water. And so that's why there may have been just more carbon dioxide in the water on the gravity experiment, but more may have been in space. And so this is what I think is the most feasible explanation of why I got my results if there was a source of error. Again, we'll be conferring with other group. That could have been the release of CO2. However, this is not such a big deal because we're only measuring the ones in the water, and the water escapes at a very slow rate. There could have been none, as I said before. We could have not stopped fermentation. However, it is very likely it was stopped by the way down. When it shakes up and when the yeast is active, it cannot survive much. Or the yeast could have been killed on the way up. However, since it's in its dormant state, it hasn't been activated by sugar, it can survive quite a lot. And yeast has been sent up before on SSEP experiments, and so I don't think this is likely either. Next slide, please. All right, so these are special thanks and credits. I'd really like to thank our sponsors and partners, the Raytheon Company, Subaru of America, CASIS, NCE, SSE, and the Otter Cares Foundations. If any of you have those OtterBox cases, that's that. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Combs, my teacher, and my STEM School and Academy, our school, my parents, and you know, that's it. Thank you.
Do we have questions for the Highlands Ranch team?
Tim, Goddard Space Flight Center. So in this experiment, you had your yeast produce some alcohol, and that was interesting about the reduced productivity in space, but still it produced some, and that raises the next question that you suggested, separating out the alcohol from the water, which on Earth is done by distillation, but distillation on Earth depends on gravity. So I just wonder if you've given any thought to what kind of technology you could imagine for that next stage in the process.
Now, actually, that second part of the idea, I just thought about it coming into Washington, D.C. I just, was thinking about giving the presentation here. I was thinking that, we don't want to get the astronauts drunk when they drink this, even if it's clean, it's still beer and people can get drunk, and we don't want that. But we still want to use the alcohol. So if we could separate the alcohol and the water, and we can find some way to do that in microgravity, because of course, as you said, it's distillation here, but that relies on gravity. I'll be certainly giving it more thought, and see if I can work with any of my more engineering friends to create something.
Jeff from Kalamazoo, Michigan. On behalf of all engineers and scientists, I'd like to thank you for your pioneering research. I would like to ask you, though, did you test the perceived quality in humans upon return? And if so, do you have a plan for a premium brand?
As I said before, we did not actually make any beer up in space or here. We just made alcohol using the ingredients of beer. I guess I'd have to wait until I'm 21 to, taste any of it, but we'll see.
Jeff from Washington, D.C. It looks like you have a factor of 2 difference in alcohol production on your 3 trials. That looks to me like a statistically significant result, correct?
Yes. With the trials, they were basically, again, just, the amount we made in the SSEP tube cut into 3 equal parts. And we just tested what would be needed to take the pH neutral on each of the trials, and they got pretty similar results. So we knew that, either there was that source of error or, we were right. And so again, that's why it's important to talk with other groups doing SSEP.
And it was great that you reached out to the group yesterday.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Yes.
How was it? How did it feel to have your research showcased on the Jay Leno show?
My dad actually showed it to me. It was hilarious as it is because it is a comedy show. But that Gravity parody was just out of mind. And even though he didn't say my name at all, it's still amazing. or mention anything about SSEP, or yeah.
We actually have that clip on the website. He was selected as a flight experiment when the movie Gravity came out. And so Jay was saying, well, it's a really good idea, beer in space. And they cut to a segment of Gravity where Sandra Bullock is floating outside. And all of a sudden, a can of Budweiser hits her in the helmet. It's on the website. Okay, let's thank Highlands Ranch, Colorado.
Thank you.